What's your facial expression when you know you made some heat? Hey everyone, welcome to the Sonically podcast where music creators educate music creators. I'm Elmo. Today we're joined by someone whose story is as inspiring as it is unexpected. Matthew Russell, co-founder of the multi-platinum trio Cheat Codes, has helped the group rack up over 8 billion streams and has collaborated with legends like Demi Lovato, Dolly Parton, and Jason Derulo. Now Cheat Codes are celebrating their 10-year anniversary with their new album Future Renaissance, featuring CeeLo Green, Train, Kenny G, and more. In today's episode, we'll talk about the hustle, the highs, the reinvention, and what it takes to keep innovating after a decade of success. So without further ado, let's welcome Matthew Russell of Cheat Codes to the show.
What's up? Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, we were just very excited to have you on the show. We know that your story is very unique and very cool. And I think anybody who listens will get a lot out of it. So if we could rewind the clock back to the beginning, did you grow up with music in your life?
Yeah, so my parents weren't very musical or anything like that, but there was just something about music that gravitated me towards it. I don't even know. I don't know if everybody has this experience in elementary school in America, but we have recorders. You know, you get introduced to like, oh, we're going to teach you how to play instruments, and there are these little flute recorder things. And that was probably like third grade, and I was just obsessed. Like I learned all the songs like in a third of the time as everyone else. They like gave me extra recorders because I already knew all the songs. Like they gave us little belts, so it was like, "Oh, you're a black belt," and it was like, "Oh, you're a 10th degree black belt and playing Mary Had a Little Lamb." You know, I was just like that's all I wanted to do. It was really weird how into it I was, but yeah, I didn't have anything from my parents' side, but I grew up in the Midwest, and it's very pop punk and like metal, and at that time the pop punk scene was really big. So I think I kind of went from that era into like middle school, high school, where everybody wanted to be in a rock band. So I think that was kind of my early
Mm-hmm.
influences for
So
sure.
going from getting your black belt and recorder and doing
Yeah,
like recorder battles in elementary school,
hot cross buns.
hot cross bun battles. How did you then discover the process of making music itself?
Yeah, I think I always remember this too. I had a really good friend in high school. Shout out Brandon. I was in a rock band with him, but he went to Colorado for like a summer, and I guess it was the summer that the band 303 blew up. You know, they were essentially just like hip hop beats with pop punk vocals over it, and at the time that was like unheard of. So we were like, how do we figure this out? So we downloaded Fruity Loops, and we figured out how to make these like hip hop inspired pop punk beats or whatever, and we just wrote songs over that. So that was probably like high school and just me figuring out how to make beats and using Fruity Loops and Logic and figuring out the whole recording process pretty early on in high school, just because you wanted to make demos. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like it would be if you were in high school at that era and you had a song that you recorded in a studio, you were considered like, oh, you're the coolest kid like in high school. So that was just me trying to figure that out and just being obsessed with it, basically.
At that time, figuring out Fruity Loops and where the internet was at that time, was it like bouncing out the beats and then throwing them up on YouTube or SoundCloud? Like, what did that look like?
No, that was MySpace era for
Mm.
sure. So it was like you go and at that time we would spend like $400, which was a lot of money to us at the time, and we'd save up for months, and then we'd go to like the one good producer in the whole town, and you would spend like 4 days recording a song, and then it's something you're super proud of, and then you put it up on MySpace, and you just hope for the best, like see if it gets traction. That was also like the era of Pure Volume. I don't know if people remember that website, but you put on Pure Volume, and that was like the early on when you figure out like late high school, early college years for me, when people kind of figured out, oh, you could buy a banner for
Mm.
Pure Volume, because there was this band called Forever the Sickest Kids, and they had this story where they accidentally charged their credit card like $600 for like the top banner on Pure Volume, and it
Mm.
got them signed to Universal
Whoa,
Motown record, like multi-million-dollar deal. So it was like this is the new wave of the internet. Like you can play your music on Pure Volume or MySpace, and you can get discovered and sign a huge record deal.
that's crazy. I there's a quote in your bio that says you've called leaving college trading textbooks for turntables, and I guess like from those early years of making beats and putting them up on MySpace, you kept on with it. Was there a moment when you knew you were all in on music?
Yeah, I don't. I think for me, I just wanted to do music. So me going to college in the first place was trying to figure out how to do music, and I think how a lot of people feel right now when it comes to higher education, it felt a little bit like a scam for me, and I went to a music conservatory. I had a scholarship, a singing scholarship, and I had to do all these hours. I remember where you have to watch other people perform, and it would be, Ave Maria, singing like all these old songs. But I was trying to be in a rock band at the same time, and I couldn't balance it. And I was like, well, I'm going to college to make, you know, be in a band or to make pop music or to learn how to become a producer. But I'm spending all this time in like classical music and not figuring out. And so I transferred. I went to this other college where they had like a music professional recording studio and all this jazz. And after going there for a year, I finally found out that you're not allowed to do any of the music classes until your third year.
Whoa.
So basically, once you spend, 50 grand at this college, then you get access to the recording studio. You can actually take music classes. You can do all this. So I was taking, communications and all these classes I wasn't that interested in. So I was just like, okay, well, instead of spending 50 grand to get in the studio, I'm just going to go to the bank and ask for a $10,000 loan. So that's what I did. I took like a $10,000 small business loan and just bought my own recording equipment. Because at that time, it was, a lot of people were still using analog gear, and
Hmm.
it was still kind of half and half, even if you were doing stuff digitally. Like there were still like analog people that were like, no, digital is not the way, which is like hilarious. So I just think like having the mentality of like going straight towards what you want was like a big game changer for me. So I didn't like know like, oh, I'm all in on music, dropping out of school. I just didn't want to waste 50 grand, if I'm being honest. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I did have a moment. I had this music project with my friend Cece. Shout out Cece Fry. She was actually on the X Factor the same season as Camila Cabello, Fifth Harmony, Emblem 3, all those people. She was like top 10
Wow.
finished. And right before she got on that show, we had like this little pop. It was like pop electronic music project, and we were just putting out songs. And we ended up getting a song on the pop radio station in this small local Illinois town,
Wow.
and it was like my first check that I got from music. And I remember it just came in the mail, and it was like $250 for like radio royalties. And I
Mm.
remember being like, okay, that's it. That's what I want to do. I want to figure out how do I keep making mailbox money, because that was like the coolest thing in the
Mm.
world to me. You can create something in the studio or with your friend or at home, and then they mail you money. I was like, I gotta like this is way more exciting than just working like an hourly wage or corporate job.
Fast forward to now. I mean, 10-year anniversary, so many years in the game, so many accomplishments. It was said that cheat codes started in a cramped LA laundry room. And can you paint a picture of those early sessions, and what were some of the biggest hurdles and challenges you all had to overcome to just get to where you are right now?
Yeah, we had this townhouse, and I'm sure a lot of people would go through this moving to places like LA or New York. But the only way we could really afford the rent was, okay, let's just have as many roommates as we can have. So it was like a 2 bedroom townhouse. We had like 6 roommates. So we had a laundry room that was like connected to the garage, and it was just for laundry. And Trevor, who's in Cheat Codes, he sings on No Promises. He's from Portland, but he was trying to spend more time in LA. So he had the idea of, hey, if I could stay with you guys, I'll throw you guys some money for your rent. And we didn't have any extra room, so we were like, hey, if you want to stay in our laundry room, we'll give it to you for like $200 a month. And
Mm.
he was like, done, I'll do it. And he was creative and forward thinking enough. He turned that whole laundry room into basically a recording studio. And we are like,
Wow.
why didn't we think of this? So that was kind of when we first started working together, because we were just both passionate about it, and we were in LA, hungry, trying to make stuff happen. But for me, because I'm not from LA, I'm from St. Louis, so I basically moved to LA with. I was like, I'm going to save up $3,000 and then just move. I didn't know anybody. I didn't have any connections, no nothing. So there
Mm,
was like the first couple years of being in LA, just working odd jobs at like restaurants, and just you're never really kind of sure when you can take that leap of like you said, like, oh, now I'm full time
mm,
with music, but you have to kind of make that decision at some point, you know.
mm, mm,
But I think meeting Trevor and then later meeting Kevy and seeing how they work in music, and then when we started making songs for cheat codes, I really felt like, oh, we have something special here. So then it gave me that confidence too. At the time, I was a waiter, and everybody I was working with was like a wannabe actor.
yeah.
So when I told them, oh, I think I'm gonna quit, I had so many of them were like, are you sure? Like, we got a pretty good gig here, man. Are you sure you want to quit? Um, so, but I'm glad I quit, obviously.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what was like the moment of, you know, being with those guys in the laundry room and just like cooking up, that you knew that, okay, this here amongst the three of us is gonna work, and this can go a really long way? Because you don't, I for me, I haven't heard of a lot of like trio EDM teams. I think that's pretty rare. So how does that all work with you guys?
Yeah, I don't think we necessarily like fully thought it through. I actually was just roommates with Trevor, so it wasn't the idea of, oh, let's live together and then start this project. We were just trying to save money on rent, and we both just happened to want to do music. Um, and then when I met Kevy, I was actually recording Kevy. I was just making beats and trying to make money off of my beats. So I was making hip hop beats.
Mm.
I was like, oh, I learned how to make beats on Fruity Loops. Maybe I can sell them to this guy named Kevy. So he was a rapper, and then after we did a couple songs, Kevy was kind of like, I don't know if I want to be a rapper. The white rapper thing. Maybe it's like a little overplayed. It's like kind of hard. But we should do like DJ music, because he actually had a friend that was DJing, which actually it's Will Smith's son, Trey Smith.
Oh wow,
I don't know if you knew he like DJs, or he used to DJ.
I didn't know.
So that's kind of how we started Cheat Codes, and the idea of the name came from Kevy. And so when we started doing these sessions, I actually had to split my time, because me and Trevor shared a room. So it was like a converted garage, but we shared a room. So we would split days. So I'd be like, Monday I get to use the speakers, and you have to use your headphones, because we were working on like different songs. So
Yeah.
then after that happened a couple times, and Kevy would come over, and Trevor would kind of like take his headphones off, and, oh, what are you guys working on? Okay, cool. Then we would take our headphones off, and, oh, what is Trevor working on? So there was like this overlap on the sounds that we were making, and we were
Mm,
kind of inspiring each other, just working on our own. So we decided, oh yeah, let's do some sessions together, and those ended up becoming the first Cheat Code songs. Like we wrote like 3 or 4 songs back to back to back. Um, yeah. So that's kind of, and I think honestly, and Trevor will tell you this too in other interviews, but the name Cheat Codes really like sold Trevor. Like, he was like, that's a great name. Like, I want to be a
mm,
part of your group. Because I think Trevor was trying to develop this other sound, because he was in a acoustic project before,
mm,
but he didn't really fully know where he wanted to take it. So I
yeah.
think he was kind of developing the sonic like production sounds, but he didn't have like the vision of what the project was going to be. So when
Mm,
we kind of had the vision of like the branding and the idea of it, then we kind of just combined all the elements, and then we're like, oh, it's perfect, we're already there.
that's crazy. So, I mean, all of that, initial journey led up to songs like No Promises with Demi Lovato and Feels Great. These tracks became global hits. Um, what do you remember most about making those tracks, and what was sort of like the decision tree, like sort of layer to layer of getting to yeses amongst the three of you guys and whoever you're collaborating with in terms of decision making? And how do you attest to sort of these that to these songs becoming so huge?
I think in the beginning, I'm sure a lot of creators have to have this mindset, but I was just trying to give us deadlines so that we were consistent, because I think sometimes your mind can get in your own way where you're, especially in the beginning, you're not sure what you're making is even good at all. So you could like work on a song for months. Like you could just work on it forever. Like, oh, this could be better, that could be better. Like you can always find something in your song that subjectively could be better. So in the beginning, we just said, okay, we're going to put out a song every month, every single month. We're just going to do that. So that was our schedule. We made a schedule and we just put out a song every month. And then from there, each song, it wasn't like every single month it got bigger, but we saw the momentum. It was like the project kept getting bigger by us doing a song every month. And then once we kind of had our first viral song, which was, well, our first viral song was Adventure, which is probably like the third or fourth song we put out. But our first like hit song was Sex that we put out with Spinning. And once we kind of hit that point, then it became as from like a business perspective of, okay, now we need to actually think about what we're putting out, be picky about the songs that we're putting out. We can't just like release every song that we write, because in the beginning you're so excited about every song that you do, you just want to drop all of them. So I think after that point, that was when we kind of thought about that. But with No Promises, that was after our first label deal. And that was kind of, we made it a point before we signed, like, hey, if we already have all this success before we sign our first long-term label deal, because we were doing songs independently and we were doing songs with labels like Spinnin', which is like we're like one-off deals. So when we did a long-term, like full-on album deal, we're like, we don't really need to work with you guys unless you guys can bring something to the table than what we're not already doing. So that was kind of how it ended up, leveraging into us working with Demi Lovato, because I think the label felt like we have something we have to prove. So we gave them No Promises by working with Ari from Lauv. Shout out Lauv, or shout out Ari. He's like a good friend of ours and amazing songwriter. And we were just kind of like, look, we need to get like a huge artist on this. Like, who can we pull off? And the label was able to like help facilitate that and legitimize us at that point in our careers to where it made sense. And then I think from there, it's just about capitalizing on every opportunity you have and building off of success. That way you can kind of be like, oh, look, a cheat codes. They worked with Demi Lovato. They worked with Fetty Wap. They worked with these artists. I'm still kind of shocked to this day that we have a song with Dolly Parton. Like, that kind of blows my mind. But I think it's like building, even this is like a Will Smith quote that I'm sure she quoted from somebody else, but it's like, don't set out to build the wall, set out to lay the perfect brick every day, you know? So I think over time, that was kind of what we just tried to focus on. And then over time, you have this roster of legitimate artists that you've worked with, to where it doesn't seem far fetched for Dolly Parton to work with you. She's just like, oh, okay, they've worked with all these people.
Yeah. So, yeah, speaking of the experience with huge country legend like Dolly Parton, um, like, how eh, do you have the song already done first, and then you guys can just imagine her voice on there, or is it something where like you sort of mold the track to fit her specifically?
Yeah, I think on a business level, it usually depends if we already know that person, or if we already have a connection or not. But most of the time, we just try to make as many really cool sounding demos as possible, just in general. And then we'll say, okay, with this song, who would sound the best on it, and who would like deliver. Because I think with artists, it's about, do you believe it? It's almost like acting, like, if like, who would have to sing this song to make you believe it?
Hmm. Hmm.
There's a lot of great songwriters, but they can't necessarily perform it. in a way that makes you believe it. Like shout out like Amy Allen, who we almost used one of her songs, but she wrote like the whole Sabrina Carpenter album, and I'm sure there's some songs that she wrote on that album that you would believe Amy singing it, but I don't know if I would believe Amy singing Espresso, you know.
Mm-hmm,
But you
mm-hmm.
believe Sabrina because she has this edge to her. She's very I don't know, just her attitude about it. So I think all of those things kind of combine into who we want to work with. But then also at the end of the day, it's a lot of just like what sticks against the wall. And sometimes we're open to hearing somebody that we didn't expect on the record. So, for example, we have on our country album, we have a song called "Never Love You Again." That song was with Lady, or sorry, not Lady A. It was with Little Big Town. But we never wrote it as a country record. We wrote it with our friend Bryn Christopher, who's actually a really dope UK R&B style singer.
Mm,
And we couldn't find a feature that could sing in his range. He sang in such a high vocal range that nobody could pull it off. So Little Big Town, for whatever reason, wanted to jump on the record, and we just kept Bryn's vocal on it as well, and they just happened to sound cool together. Like, you know, that wasn't like an overly thought out thing, but that ended up kicking off and inspiring the whole country album. So I think there's a lot of like happy accidents that can
mm,
happen if you're open to it. And I think as artists and creative people, you have to be open to that as well, versus sometimes, especially in the beginning of being a creative professional, you're like, it has to be like this.
mm.
Otherwise it's not my art, you know? And I think
Right.
letting go of the reins a little bit and realizing that there's only 12 keys on a keyboard. No idea is truly 100% original. So you have to like give it up to God at a
Mm,
certain level, you know, like this is, and also like you can redo songs, you know? So it's like when you put out a song, that's not necessarily like the end of it. You know, you can do a remix. There's, you know, so I think I had to learn that early on in our career of like letting go.
wow. That's such a lesson right there. Um, you know, you guys are embarking on this this 10-year celebration, and Future Renaissance is the new album that is sort of it kind of came as a result of that. Um, with this album as a whole, was there anything that you guys wanted to say in terms of a message or impact about who you are now?
Yeah, I think some of it too was just about recapturing that energy from the laundry room, how you were bringing up, where it's like when you're starting from zero, then everything becomes exciting, you know? And then when you've been doing it for 10 years and you've played all the festivals and you've had platinum songs and you've done all these things, then there's like a weird mentality that can happen where you're kind of like comparing apples to oranges a little bit, instead of it just being like, oh wow, that was crazy how we created that from nothing. So I think that was kind of the energy we were trying to recapture. And also we've done so many different genres and styles. We did like a pop punk album, you know, we did the country album. So I think we kind of just wanted to experiment, like what would it sound like if we just were trying to kind of like not redo but recapture the sound of when we first started, and like what
Mm.
inspired us to start the group in the first place. So that was kind of the original idea for the album, Future Renaissance.
What was the inspiration behind the song "Go to Hell" that features CeeLo Green? Because I feel like in terms of sonics and messaging, there was sort of a spiritual element to it. I guess that's what I felt, anyways. But how did that song come together?
Yeah, we were just sitting in the studio. We were working with our good friend. I'll shout him out again, Bryn Christopher, and we were also working with Jackson Foote. So Jackson Foote he's also part of this project called Loot, but he's a big songwriter as well. He's written for Forrest Frank. He's written for Shabuzi, and he also wrote on our song No Promises. So we're really comfortable with writing with him, and he has been working, like kind of by accident. He kind of has been working on these like Christian gospel records. So when we got in the studio with him, we were like, how can we make something that's kind of soulful? And I think our reference at the time was like Tennessee Whiskey by Chris Stapleton. Because I think a lot of times for us, when we get inspired, it's like, how can we fit something that shouldn't work for like dance music, or for like almost like combining two genres or styles into one? And that's usually where we get a lot of inspiration from. So that's kind of where we kind of started with the chords, and they were more gospel, like soulful chords. And then we wrote the melodies and had that idea for the hook. And when we kind of reached out to CeeLo, he kind of turned it on his head with the verse lyrics. He tweaked the lyrics, made them more swaggy. He
Mm.
added all these like one liners, like between a rock and a hard place, and all this. And yeah, it kind of grew from there. And then we kind of revisited the production, and we're like, okay, how do we make this kind of like CeeLo's classic record of like FU? So
Yeah.
it was almost like a more like modern twist on that record on accident, kind of.
Yeah, I could totally feel that. It definitely um, made me want to move, but made me want to, feel and think at the same time. Um, and speaking of, you know, moving, the song Towers, you said that it tells your sobriety story in disguise. What does that mean?
Yeah, I mean nothing like too deep, but I wrote that with my friend Eric and our friend Frawley, who's singing on the records. And I mean, really, it's just about believing in yourself and believing that you're bigger than you actually are. I think a lot of times we tend to like talk down to ourselves. And for me, I've been doing the sober thing for like 3 years, and I just kind of used alcohol as a crutch a little bit. It was more just to numb stage fright. I had a lot of fear when it came to performing. I guess performance anxiety.
Hmm.
And I just had to switch the mentality. And also, I think taking it away from it's all about you can really help people as well. Like I kind of made it more about how can the crowd have a good time, and then I was kind of able to overcome that stage fright anxiety. Um, but yeah, it wasn't anything crazy with the song, but I think it's just good to pull from life experiences and put it in your art. I think it makes you appreciate the songs more versus just always in your mind like, oh, I just want to make something catchy.
Yeah, yeah. Totally. I was watching this Netflix documentary on Avicii, and there was like a moment in there where they kind of went through, the his daily cycle of being on tour, where he's on stage, he's playing for thousands and thousands and thousands of people, huge adrenaline rush, and that's like an amazing feeling for him. But then after it's over, he goes back to the hotel and he's alone and he's just um he has to kind of just be in his aloneness. And I guess that's what kind of like was the starting point to um drinking a lot, and maybe I think there were some drugs, other drugs involved in there as well. um could you relate to that feeling as well,
Yeah, I think
yeah.
we're as cheat codes, we're really lucky that there's three of us, because we've definitely encountered a lot of DJs on the road. Well, they'll straight up tell us like, "Man, I'm just so lonely out here," because a lot of times, especially in the beginning of their careers, it's just them and maybe a tour manager. So luckily, it's always been us three, and we've had each other to lean on through the highs and lows. For me, when it just came to alcohol, it was just, you know, wanting to numb that nervousness and wanting to have fun. And, you know, sometimes, when you're playing so many shows, you tend to get in your head and you're like, oh, I don't want to mess up. I don't want to mess up. And it takes the fun out of it. But I think I just had to look up after like years of touring and be like, oh, I pretty much drink every single show. And if you do 100 shows a year, you're drinking a third of the year. And that's probably not the healthiest thing for you. So And I think it's one of those things where we make these like bigger monsters in our head than they actually are. Where like a lot of times the audience is like more scared of you than you are scared of them,
Mm-hmm.
and then you do those first couple shows sober and you look people in the eye and they're looking back at you and you realize this monster wasn't really like a monster at all. Like it was just in your head.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think there also is an element too where there's a lot of DJs that if they've been performing while like under the influence for so many years, they think, can I do this without it? They don't know if they can. And then it just becomes like a spiral where, it becomes really unhealthy. But I've been lucky enough. We've done shows with people like Steve Aoki. We've done songs with David Guetta. We've done events with Diplo, these kind of guys where, or even like Dylan Francis, who they lean into sobriety and it helps them have more longevity and play more shows. So I think even from that angle of just like compounding, like, can you do? I can do more shows if I'm sober. Like
Mm-hmm.
I just have more energy
Yeah.
than if I was drinking every show. So even just from the fan perspective, if you want to give it back to the fans, I just think it's better overall for me personally. It doesn't mean, people can't have a drink every once in a while, but um yeah, it was definitely something I had to face like head on.
You've also said that prayer replaced the bottle when it came to stage fright, and that it anchors the touring side of your life. How did you find prayer, and how did you, come to realize that prayer was the thing that you needed?
Yeah, so when I was trying to do those first couple shows sober, it was really hard for me. You're just so nervous and you don't know if you can even make it through the show. And I just remember praying, and you just do this little prayer where you're just asking God, you're asking like, Jesus, please take away this anxiety, take away all my stage fright, deliver me from this anxiety. And then you go up on stage and whatever that noise is in your head is just gone. And it's like the weirdest thing. It's just weird that it worked for me like that. And it was such a simple intention to have. And, for people that aren't religious, I think even just having intentions and maybe like a positive visualization like beforehand can really help as well, because I try to put it more on the crowd of, I want the crowd to have a good time. And I think something about prayer is it takes you out of your own head and it makes it bigger than just yourself, versus everything being about me, 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 me. I want to look cool. I don't want to mess up. This is all about me. That actually makes you more nervous. It's like the spotlight's on you, versus it being like, no, I want the crowd to have a good time. I don't really care if I look like an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
If they're having fun but I look like an idiot, then I'll be happy. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think I just leaned into that and it helped me. And I mean, there's a reason why people that are leaning into sobriety, they do the 12-step program and they say lean into a higher power, because it's hard to stay sober. And a lot of people, if they're only relying on themselves and their willpower, then you're going to have days where you don't have any willpower left. So
Mm-hmm.
being able to ask something greater than yourself, it almost lets you like relax and be like, oh, okay, I don't have to carry all this weight on my own shoulders. I can give it to something bigger.
There's a couple of other things, that I pulled from your story, which was, you now have a mantra, do everything in love, which is coming from a Bible verse. And you also said that live shows are your church as well. Um, you know, so from prayer to scripture to, seeing your journey as sort of like I guess, a mission in a way. Like, what do you, how do you sort of like, um, make sense of that all?
Yeah, and also just to clear this up, I go to real church, so I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't say like me performing is the same as church at all. But
Got it.
like I said before, I think when I was drinking every show, I definitely got to maybe a dark place where I was just trying to like numb the experience. I wasn't being present in the experience. And now, when I do go to church, I go to church on Sundays, and you're worshiping and you're feeling this connection of community, and you all have this like shared experience and this shared intention. When I perform now, I try to bring that shared intention to the club, where like I want everybody to feel good. I want everybody to be healthy. I want everybody to be safe when they leave the club, and I want them to have like a genuinely like, positive experience. Whereas before, like I said, I was just making everything about me. Like, how do I look cool in this club? Oh, did we sell at the club? Like, oh, do we look cool? Like, did people like the songs that I played? Like, you know what I mean? It's like I can play a song and you don't even know the song, but you could still have a positive experience.
Hmm.
So I think that's kind of what I meant by that quote.
Nice. Do you feel like, you know, overall life is better and there's more love in your life?
Yeah, I got married in February, so that that helps. I think a lot of times too, when you're doing something creative, or maybe even you have your own small business, it consumes so much of your life, and you kind of trick yourself into thinking like, oh, it has to be this way to be competitive. But I think if you have something at home that's completely separate from your job, your career, your business, it actually takes the pressure off when you go in to perform, because you realize this isn't all that there is. This isn't my whole life. Like,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? I don't really need these people to like me as like on a personal level. Like, I have a loving wife at home, so
That's
I would encourage people, find get married, or find someone that loves them, and find things that you love to do outside of your work or your hobbies or your career. I mean,
that's so good. Wow, time flew by so fast, Matthew. Like we're already on our last question of the main section of the interview.
nice.
Um, the last question is, as I mentioned before, we are a platform that has a mandate to educate the next generation of music creators. So for those kids coming up who look up to you, what advice would you give them?
Oh man. So just creators in general or music?
Yeah, just basically the younger version of you.
Yeah, the younger version of me. I definitely used to have so much anxiety, social anxiety, performance anxiety, and it's just hard. I don't know if advice wise I was even open to just like hearing one thing that would solve all of it, but I just think most things aren't as big of a deal as you make them to be, like a lot of things end up they just don't matter. um I guess the term is you make mountains out of molehills. Especially when you're younger, and then you kind of get a little bit older, and you ease into it, and you realize, oh, that wasn't as such a big deal as I thought it would be. And it's kind of, when you relax into that, it allows you to take more risks. So I would, if I could give advice to young people, I think you just got to go for it and take big risks, and don't be afraid to look foolish, because those are the people that are going to stand out. And you also don't want to be left wondering, like, what if I could have done this or that. And it's a lot harder when you get older and you do have a wife or you do have a family to take those big risks. So I am happy that I did that when I was younger. When I was like 21, I moved to LA. I only had $3,000 like saved up, which took me like 4 or 5 months, maybe longer to save up, and I just went for it. So I think anybody that has a dream or a goal, especially if you're young, I think you just got to go for it.
So good. I think that's going to go a long way for a lot of people. Just hearing that from somebody with a story like yours, I think it's very inspiring. Um, yeah, so we're now about to transition to the rapid fire round, and it's just a quick set of questions that just defines you a little bit more as a music creator and human being, and then we can just close with whatever you guys got going on coming up in the near or distant future. Are you cool?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Rapid fire round number one. Favorite DAW and why?
Right now, I use Ableton. I used to use Logic, and I used to use Pro Tools. I think for me, now that Ableton has the vocal comping, I think it's probably the best. I think before it was always the best with automation, and I use it to like make edits and warp tracks. Like I would not be able to do that in Logic as far as warping tracks and changing the tempo of like a full song. I was only able to figure that out once I started using Ableton. So I think if you're in the DJ space and you're working on live sets or you're working on remixes or edits, I think Ableton's probably the best.
Dope. Favorite plugin right now that you're using?
Favorite plugin? It's a good question. It's probably a dumb answer, but I like putting the God particle on the master chain. It just makes me feel like, oh, okay, I have a finished song, or at least you can hear like what it would sound like with like the beefy master, like everything's loud and like bright.
A sound that always brings you joy.
A sound that always brings me joy. Ooh, that's crazy. I used to play saxophone when I was growing up, and I just bought one. So now I'm trying to get back into it, like trying to like play and practice, and so yeah, it gives me joy.
Nice. Rank yourself out of 1 to 10 on the following music creator skill sets: mixing,
Mixing, that's a tough one because there's so many like professional mixers. I would never rank myself like anywhere near them. So I probably just do like a 5 or 6.
beat making,
Beat making, I'm probably 5.
lyric writing,
That's usually my stronger suit, like when it comes to the group. So I'll just do like 7.
sound design,
Sound design, probably a 3.
top lining,
Top lining, I would say 7.
music theory,
I'll go 6.5 because I mean I took the classes.
arranging.
Arranging, I would say 7.
What's your facial expression or reaction when you know you made some heat?
You can screenshot that, I guess.
Nice. Morning or night studio sessions and why?
Yeah, morning for sure. Um, I haven't done too many nighttime sessions, but every time I have done them, I don't think they've gone very well. So
If AI took over music production and all of music making tomorrow, what would you do instead?
yeah, I guess your question is if it just takes over all of music making. Um, I mean, maybe like real estate or business or just, yeah, I'd probably just start some sort of business, to be honest, like that I could still be creative with. Um, yeah, because yeah, you're right. They're pretty much rendering like full movies now with all the AI, huh?
Yeah, when you go through an app like Suno, what are your thoughts when you play around with it? Have you played around with it?
Yeah, yeah. I actually use it a lot for just designing like live visuals, things like that. I mean, I think it's great. I think right now, I think it's a useful tool for creative people. It's like with everything we've seen with new technology, it lowers the barrier of entry for people to get in. So I guess the scary part is that if it just completely replaces like people making music, or if it'll just be people just do music live because I don't know, but it's like people could render if they really want to sit there and render like a full movie, they could do it. They don't need like a producer or a Hollywood executive to like give them the green light. So from that angle, I think it's cool, but yeah, it's definitely scary overall.
Totally. Matthew, we made it, man. We are at the last question of the interview.
Let's do it.
And before we get into that last question, I just want to say thank you very much. You've blessed us with your presence. You've blessed us with wisdom, knowledge,
Thank you for having me.
and just everything about your story is so great and impactful. And I think a lot of people will get a lot out of it. The last question is, what's next for you in Cheat Codes? Anything you'd like to share or promote with the Sonically community?
Yeah, Cheat Codes, just working on new music. We just dropped our album Future Renaissance. Go check it out. We have shows through the rest of the year. We usually play on the weekends. We're playing in, let's see, we're playing in Omaha, Nebraska on the 30th, and we're playing in Dominican Republic on Halloween. So that'll be fun. Yeah, we got a bunch of shows throughout the year, which is going to be fun as well. Yeah, other than that, I would just say go stream the new album. And we have some new. We just dropped a new track too with Ollie Farbin called "Loving You Is Life,"
Hmm.
and that song's really dope. He's a pretty big German DJ who
Wow.
we're really big fans of. So also check out that song.
We'll definitely do that. We're so excited about all the stuff that you guys have coming up, and we'll definitely be praying for you for many more blessings ahead, and just for more wonderful and amazing things on your music creator journey. And we just thank you again. Hope you kill it on the next tour.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.